Hi. Let me first say thank you for buying my first ever video class. I've tried to include everything you need to create the project. The video is yours to keep forever. You paid for it, you bought it, there's no expiration date on it, it's yours to keep forever. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on my Facebook page, Old to Ooh La La. You know I'll help you. I don't mind. If you have 100 questions, I'm okay with that. I don't mind helping you. I've tried to include pictures of all the products that I've used, whether it be on the supply list, which will be coming up in the first couple of images that you see. I suggest pausing that and taking a picture of that so you can take it shopping with you if you do need to go shopping. And then you'll have everything on your phone that you need. I've labeled all the steps, tried to be as clear and concise as I can be. I had fun making it. I hope you have fun making it. And that's what I really want to impart to you. Have fun. Your project is going to be uniquely yours. It's not going to look exactly like mine, and it's not supposed to. It's going to have your interpretation on it, which is wonderful because we're all different. But it'll still have acorns and oak leaves and all the cool crackle and antiquing, and I think you're going to love it. So go ahead and jump right in and get started. The first thing we're going to do is make an imprint into clay with our kindest regards stamp. You want that to be about 6 by 6, 6 by 7 in measurement. I've got some clay here. I've just kind of warmed it in my hands to make it pliable. Cornstarch, it's kind of like rolling out pie dough. I put cornstarch on my board. I always work on a nice flat board. So I put cornstarch here. Then I'm going to just start flattening this out. You don't want it super thin, maybe a 1/4 inch thick. I can see we're going to need more, so that's okay. We can just add to it. Roll it in your hands to get it kind of warmed up and pliable. So we can add to this. This part I do this way. I put a little bit of cornstarch on my fingers to make it roll nice and easy. Then I have a little, this is an old Pampered Chef rolling pin. You can use anything for a rolling pin. You could use a jar for a rolling pin. It doesn't have to be a rolling pin. Just something round that you can flatten out your clay with. Work it out from the middle because that's where it's the thickest. If it sticks, just add more of your cornstarch. Roll, roll, roll. I might come in with my hands again. See how much we're sticking. It's not sticking a lot, which is a good thing. I'm going to put some more here, so. Excuse me, I feel like I might need some more, which is okay. If you have seams on this, that's not a bad thing because the ink, the antiquing gel will pick up where it's a seam, and it'll just look good. It'll look even more aged and weathered. So that's not a bad thing. To see I have the seam here, I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm just just rolling it out. I do have a little tape measure here. I'm just going to measure 7 by, that looks pretty good. Because when you start laying out your acorns and your leaves, you can lay them here and it'll cover this transition seam. So that's not a big deal. Okay, so that's ready to go. Now I have my kindest regards stamp. I'm going to take cornstarch and I'm going to do this so I can get a nice impression and my clay will not stick. Tap just a little bit off out of camera range. Turn it over, figure out where you want it. I kind of want this area here, I think. No, I want this area here, so I better. The way I did it is the area that says Dear Friend, which starts right about in the middle. So I'm going to take Dear Friend, and I want to get some of this up there too. So I'm going to take and put it right about here. So I've just laid it down. Now I'm going to press every single place that there's a letter. I'm going to press it into the clay, every single inch, to get a really super nice impression. And this is just going to go right into that clay, and then when you go over it with your antique gel glaze, it's going to sink down in all these little depressions and the words will show up. It's very cool. I'm just going to peek, make sure. Yep. Press every part of it. You might even could do this. I haven't thought about that. That's probably even better. But I still would go with my fingers and make sure. Okay, I think we got a really nice impression, which you probably won't be able to see really well on camera because it's all white. Okay, time for the big reveal. Kind of peel it off. Go slow. You might have to help it come away, which I did. And there you go. There's your impression. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to bring it very close to the camera. There you go. So now we're going to take that image, make sure that you can get it up off of the, if you cannot get it off of whatever surface you're working on, I take my little, excuse my arm, I take my little trusty, whatever you call it, I don't know what this is called, a putty knife, or I even have a spatula out in my garage, which I find works really, really well too, because then you can just kind of give it one of these and get up underneath it like this. If you get little little bits that get a little imperfect, that's okay. Imperfect is good. Imperfect is what makes it look old and aged and weathered. If you're striving for perfection, you're going to miss the joy. That's what I think. So I don't even think about perfect. I just do it. If I'm having fun and I like it, then that's how I roll. Now we're going to attach this to the pot. Here's your pot. I'm going to take this off, replace it with the pot. I'm going to move the camera up some so you can see that happen. There's my pot. I'm going to turn this over into my hand like that. Okay? I have my glue right here. Eileen's is fine for this. It works just fine. And I'm going to apply glue all around the edges. All around the edges. The whole edge, okay? All around the edges, and then come in through the center and apply glue. Then, this is the messy part. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to make sure that that's all spread out to my edges. Doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, your acorns and your oak leaves are going to go over that section there and kind of make a seal. It'll kind of marry this piece to the pot, like a transition point. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to lay it on my pot, just like that. Wipe the glue off my hands. I'm not going to press aggressively because I don't want to lose my detail. So that's it. There we go. And then we're going to take all of our leaves and everything and put it up around here. When you're putting your leaves on, you may have to remove a little bit of this. If it sticks out past the point of the leaves, you might have to remove some, but it's not a big deal. Take your putty knife or whatever you might need and just kind of cut into it and move it away. Okay, so there's your step one. Okay, step two, we're going to talk about actually making the molds. Sometimes I'll make molds as I go, and sometimes I'll make all my molds before my project. This project I made all my molds up front because there's so many of them, and once you get glue on your fingers, it's hard to go back to the clay and get into fresh clay. You get glue on it, you know, it's not a great thing. So what I did, I'm going to show you. I made all of my molds ahead of time. You're going to need 3 large oak leaves, 8 small oak leaves, 8 small acorns, and 3 large acorns, 2 of which the stem will go to the right, 1 the stem will go to the left. And you're going, and I just put them in an airtight container, and they'll keep for, I've had stuff keep for weeks like this, but it's just going to keep for a few minutes till we use them. What I did not make was the small fleur-de-lis because I wanted to show you. We'll do just one little mold. So I put my cornstarch in like that. I like to use cornstarch every single time. Makes everything release really well. So that's my preferred way to make a mold. I take a small amount in my hand, I rub it together to make it warm and nice and pliable. I put it down in my mold. I'm going to smush everything out to the sides. Now, I kind of secure it in the middle, bring everything back and get a nice drag across that micro rim, which gives you a beautiful smooth edge. You don't have a bunch of little ruffly stuff around the edges. And then I'll hold this. If I didn't hold this back here and I went like this, that little tail would lift up, and you don't want that. So I just kind of secure it, and then I do the same thing here. I just push up, drag everything back across that micro rim. And once you can see, the nice thing about that micro rim is you can see that you've got a nice, beautiful, clean mold. And that's all there is to it. On something with this kind of detail, I generally take it and turn it over. These bend a lot. You can really bend them. You can bend them almost in half. Do you see that little tip that popped out? And then I'm just going to kind of guide it and make sure everything comes out in one piece. And there it is. There's your little fleur-de-lis. Perfect. It's got one little fuzzy on it right there. So there's your fleur-de-lis. So I'll go ahead and pop him in with the rest of the molds and put the top on it. And that's it for step 2. Okay, this is step 3. This is where it gets real. So a lot of this you kind of feel your way. I'm going to start here and we're going to build up this way and then build up this way and just kind of jump right in. I have my Aleene's glue. You've got all your molds that you made. They're all ready to go. I'm going to start in the center with my Fleur de Lis mold. I'm going to make sure I have glue to all the edges. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to make sure, you can see where this gets super messy. I'm going to make sure that I have glue all the way, and this looks like the center to me. I don't overthink things. This little bit here, it's going to look great. This is where I pulled away some of the clay, but this rough bit here will serve us really well later. When you're pushing your molds down, they've had a little while to kind of firm up, which is good. Push your edges down and then look at them from the side and you'll be able to see if they're all the way flush. You want them flush because then they look like they're part of what's happening. And as you're working, you can go back and you can look, because as time goes on, excuse me, they will start to, as they dry, they'll start to shift and move a little bit, and then you can always kind of make them flush again. You don't want to press, you see how I'm kind of going on the edges? You don't want to press on the top because you lose your definition. I'm going to take 2 small leaves and I'm going to go out from each side. So I'm basically building myself a starting point. So I've got this leaf and I'm going to put glue all the way to the edges. I'm going to tuck it right in there. Right in there. I'm going to make sure it's all flush. We're going to turn it this way a little bit. See, it kind of tucked right up in there underneath the curlicue. That's a good place for it. Make sure it's flush. I'm going to take a small acorn. I'm going to put it right on top of that leaf. Sometimes you might have to, like here, I'm going to lift this a little bit. And I'm going to put my acorn right there. That's where I want that acorn. So now I've got my Fleur de Lis, I've got a leaf, and I've got an acorn. Now I'm going to take one of my large leaves. I'm going to add my glue. Spread it all out to the edges. You want everything out to the edges. I'm going to gently lift this and kind of tuck it in under there. And that's where I'm going to put that big leaf, right there. Okay? Smush it all the way down on your edges. Now I'm going to take another small acorn. I'm going to put my glue on it, and I'm going to put him right there because it looks like that would be, what I tried to do was keep the acorns in 2s in most places because it kind of seems like a better idea, like they look better in 2s, I think. I'm going to bend him over a little bit. And you've got time to play. It's not, I'm going to move this a little bit closer. It's not, it doesn't dry like, you know, super glue. You got some time to move things around and play with them a little bit. Now I'm going to take a small leaf. I'm going to add my glue. Doesn't really matter where you add the glue as long as the glue gets to all the edges. Okay, so now this small leaf I'm going to have come down and go over the big leaf. And so he's going to go just like that. Okay, just like that. And now what I want to do, because I want to keep this centered as much as I can, I'm going to work on this center part. So I'm going to take, and then what happens from here to here, you kind of have to zhuzh it and kind of, not every single project will look the same as mine, and that's okay, because you want to put your own stamp on it for sure. I'm just giving you a basic guideline. So this is another one of my large leaves, and I'm going to take him and put him right about here. I'm going to take him and put him right about there. There's a little bit of a cutout right there, which I did because I wanted that to, you'll see why. There's a method to the madness. Okay, so now we've got this section that looks like this. We're going to take one of our small leaves and one of our large acorns, and we're going to take the acorn that goes to the right. So this is the acorn that goes off to the right. His stem goes to the right. So we're going to take and we're going to glue him. We're going to tuck him kind of right in here. So he's going to be kind of tucked right in here. So that's where he goes. Now this little leaf could go here, but that looks weird. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take and make it so it tucks in a little bit nicer. So I'm going to take my fingernail, or you could take whatever you needed to take, something sharp, and I'm just going to kind of take the bottom part of that off, measure it in there. Yeah, see how that fits better? And it's not like sticking out way up here. So we're going to do that. We're going to put some glue on it. And that's going to tuck right in there and fill that spot in real pretty. Real pretty. And when this gets painted and when you put your antiquing glaze on it, all these little parts get glazed down in them, and it just looks amazing. Now I'm going to take one of my small acorns, because I like to do acorns in twos. I'm going to give him a little bit of glue. I'm going to spread it around, and I'm going to bend his stem a little bit the other way, and I'm going to put him right in there, which looks amazing. So now you've got that right in there. That's good. Let's go here and work up this way now. So I need 2 small leaves down here. Glue. Small leaf kind of up top. Another small leaf. We're going to layer this one over the other one. We're going to layer this one right in here and make him go like that, which looks amazing. So there's that part. Turn this to the side. Now we need a big leaf. The big leaves are kind of like background almost. You can layer other things on top of them, like those cute little acorns. So I'm going to take this, and it looks like I'm going to put it right about here. Get those edges to lay down real nice. Then I'm going to take 2 small acorns. I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to put one kind of on top of where that one is. I'm going to bend his stem a little bit the other way so they look like they're growing together. And I'm going to put him kind of like that. Okay, so now you've got your 2 acorns, you've got a big leaf right here. Then I'm going to take a small acorn and a large acorn, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing, kind of layer again on top of that big leaf. I'm going to come up here, give that right there, and then this acorn, yes, this acorn will, sorry, I'm out of camera range. I'm not used to my new tripod setup, but I'll get used to it. Okay, so that one needs to come and be in here on the actual, that looks good, on the actual kindest regards clay piece. Okay, now again we're going to take, and this has to come here, but I'm going to give it a little trim so it fits pretty, kind of blunt that edge a little bit so he fits pretty. And again, please don't think about perfection here, because every little nick, every little what you perceive to be an imperfection is going to be fabulous when that antique glaze hits it. That's what you want. You want lots of texture and different things going on. So this we're going to kind of put right in here. So that's another leaf we have. Then I need one more, 1, 2. I'm just kind of thinking to myself right now, you guys, making sure that I've made enough leaves, that I have enough acorns. So that's going to be a large acorn there and a small one there. Leaf there. You guys, I need one more acorn. So you know how quick that goes. Bear with me. I'm going to make one more acorn. I grab my mold. I want a large acorn. Which way do I want it to go? Okay, so I grab a large acorn. I'm going to do this out of camera range. And that's what I mean about, you kind of, some of this stuff, you got to wing it. I mean, you can explain it as much as you want, but sometimes you got to wing it. So on my other pot, I know I had as many acorns as I measured out, but this pot's taken one more, so that's okay. We adapt. Okay, so those are going to go up there. So I need one more big acorn to put here, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to squeeze that there. You can bend these down because that's what I want to do. So he's going to go right there. Okay. That looks really good. I'm just moving that up so that acorn shows a little bit more. That's the nice thing about working with these when they're wet, because you can manipulate them to look just exactly how you want them to. So now I'm going to put the leaves up top. I've got my glue. I'm kind of sparingly using the glue. I don't use a ton of glue because I think that things start to slide around and that's not good. I find that you don't really need all that much glue. So then I'm going to put a smaller acorn right under that leaf up there, up here. I want to move you guys a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to push this right in here. That one goes there, and then I'm going to do a big acorn. That was an extreme close-up, wasn't it? I'm going to do a big acorn next to it. Like that. I'm going to leave the top of this open because I think I want to tuck this little leaf right in there. I dropped it. All right, I'm back. My glue. See how messy your hands get? Very messy. That's why I like to make the molds first. I just find that it works better that way. So there's that. And then I'm going to put another acorn there. I'm going to put a little bit of a, I think, let me look. Whoops, acorn down. I got him. So if I put an acorn here and do a bit of a leaf there, or maybe I'll do an acorn. Oh, I see what I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the acorn like this and put a bit of a leaf up there. And I'm going to probably take this leaf off right about here and tuck him in right here. And then probably layer those acorns over him is what I'm going to do. So, take this back. This guy's already glued down, but the beauty of this is you can tease him up a little bit. It's not going to hurt him. Put a little bit of a leaf under there. Push that back down. And then, where'd that little acorn go? Here he is. Then I'm going to put this acorn time for a new bottle of glue. I'm going to put this acorn here. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. Now I'm going to go around all of my edges, give them a nice press down so they adhere, especially around the out. I'm going to pull you back a little bit. Especially around the outside of the pot, like around here. I want to make sure everything is sticking nicely. So when we seal this, we don't have any things sticking up. And this is the best way to do it, is look at it from this angle. And you'll be able to see if anything's sticking up. Like this is a little up right here. I want to make sure that gets pressed down nice. Come in here. That leaf looks like it needs to be pressed down. We got a little bit of stuff here we need to do. here, all around here. I think we have nice symmetry. This guy wants to come a little bit loose. Did I even glue him? I did. Okay, so we'll just make sure that he gets sometimes I just get quiet, you guys, you know, because I'm thinking. Okay. Okay, we did it. That took us about 20 minutes. This is all glued down. You've got that nice, like a wreath effect almost. You've got your beautiful script here. I'm going to move this up just a bit so some more of our script shows. I feel like we lost a little bit of script action here. There, seeing that gives us some little script right there. And that's it. That, my friends, is step 3. I'm going to let this dry overnight. You wouldn't have to. You could seal it now, but I'm gonna let it dry overnight because I can. I've done 3 videos today and I'm all talked out. So I'm going to do some editing and, you know, do my thing. And there we go. There it is. All done. Play it back. Press pause when you need to. There you go. Okay. Bye-bye. All right, we're on to step 4, which is painting. Let me adjust the camera so we have a nice angle here. It's hard to get it just straight, but that looks pretty okay. You can see here where it dried and it cracked and it separated a little bit, and there's a little bit here. That's perfectly okay. That will be cool on the other end of things. You will see. Okay, so I am going to paint with just an off-white chalk paint that I make myself. You can use whatever you want. Use Dixie Belle, you can use DYI, you can use Annie Sloan, you can use whatever off-white paint you like. This is the off-white paint that I'm going to use. I'm going to use 2 different brushes for this. I'm going to use a brush, it's almost like a stencil brush to get the paint down into here. And then I'm going to use this on the back side, getting all of this painted. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm just kind of swirling the paint on. This is not a place where you need to be super concerned with complete coverage, because you're going to be applying your antique glaze, but you do want to get down into any of those cracks where that pot color, that terracotta, shows through. You want to go ahead and get that real filled in. And then when the antique gel gets in there, it just looks antique. You can't see the terracotta. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to fill all of this with kind of a brushing almost like a little kind of a scrubbing motion. Careful not to build up paint, especially where these letters are. So you can kind of just do this where the letters are. You don't have to worry about getting paint down into the letters because they're going to fill with antique gel. So you don't want to fill up those little recessed parts with paint, or the gel won't get back in there. Does that make sense? So you want to keep anything like this, any of these little real clear of any kind of buildup. So again, this is not too precise. It's not rocket science. I'm just making sure that any little cracks and crevices are filled in. If there's any parts where the terracotta shows through, I'm going on the edges and I'm getting the edges real nice, getting those filled in real nice. You don't want a bunch of standing paint. And we're only going to do one coat also. This isn't a two-coat process. This is one coat because when you go over it with the antiquing gel, it darkens it up, and you just don't need it, quite frankly. So I'm making sure that that little crack is filled in, and everything here, making sure that my letters aren't filled in with paint. We don't want standing paint in there. And if every single piece of your clay is not covered, don't worry about it. That doesn't matter. Okay, now I'm going to hold it. This is where I feel like this needs to come up a bit. There we go. This is where I don't worry too much about my brush strokes. In fact, if they're kind of a little off center or maybe not quite so smooth, it's okay, because again, that antiquing gel picks up any kind of what some people might perceive as an imperfection. To me is not imperfection. To me it's texture and it's interest. So I go every which way when I paint. It doesn't have to be perfect, and this terracotta is going to really absorb the paint. So no worries there. Don't even worry about that. Okay. Turn this over. This is very, very quick. Again, don't overthink this stuff. Just a little cheap chip brush. Don't get your good brushes out for this. You don't need them. You can paint the bottom, and I will paint the bottom. I just won't paint it on camera because that seems silly. So now this is completely painted. It's all painted. I've checked all these. You want to check here to make sure that you don't have any terracotta showing. You want to check here, make sure there's no terracotta. Again there, no terracotta. And around there, no terracotta. Not the end of the world if it shows, because that antiquing gel is going to cover it. So then I come and I do the lip of my pot. On pots like this, I paint down maybe an inch or two on the inside, because I'm probably, if I used this for myself, I would not plant directly in this. I might put a plant in its own planter inside of this, but this is not sealed. So if you want to keep it for any length of time, I would not put actual dirt into it that's going to get watered and seep out, even though we're going to seal it on the outside. It's just not a great idea. I'm guessing there's ways to seal pots for like long time use, but a lot of chemicals, I don't know. I just don't do it. I just put a pot within the pot, if that makes sense. So that's all I'm doing on the inside of this. Just going down about this far. Whatever you put in this pot is not going to show. Now, if you're of the mind to paint all the way down to the bottom, knock yourself out. It's your pot. You can do whatever you want. I don't, just because I don't think it's that necessary. So now I'm just going to make sure that I got everything covered, and I do. And I'll turn this over in a minute and I'll paint the bottom after this little ridge dries around the top. And that's it. That is done. It's painted with one coat of an off-white paint. That's all you need is one coat. Don't waste 2 coats. You don't need it. So we're going to let that dry. I will probably dry it with a blow dryer for a couple of minutes. This will dry very quickly. A couple of reasons. The pot is terracotta. It's practically already dry. These are clay. They soak up the paint. They dry real quick. So I'll probably hit this with a blow dryer, and then we'll move on to step 5. Now we're going to move on to step 6. All of these steps I consider almost like prep work. The fun is going to be step 7, 8, and 9. That's where the fun comes in. That's where you get to antique it and add the moss and add the highlights to it. That's where it's fun. This is leading up to the fun. I'm going to seal it with Polyvine Wax Finish Varnish in a satin, because that's what I have. They also have a dead flat finish, which I use also, but the satin is nice for this. When we seal it, it'll give it, it won't be glossy by any stretch, but it will give it a nice sheen, which makes things show up real nice. I like to use a nice soft brush for this part. It's quite soft, and that helps me get in all the little places. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I load my brush up, get it nice and kind of saturated. When I'm coming over this part, I want to be kind of quick on the face of this where it's stamped with the kindest regards, because here's what I don't want. Just like with the paint, I do not want this product to pool down inside these dents here, because if that happens, then there's no place for the antique gel to go, and that's where you want the antique gel to go. So I do make sure that they're sealed. I'll do this, and then I'll go with a pretty fine eye, and I'll look over the whole thing and make sure that none of these little lines are filled with this product. And it's pretty much that quick. And I always do that part first so it's out of the way, and I've remembered to do that. Then I'm just going to come and I'm going to start getting this sealed. And we want this to be sealed so our antiquing gel will slide around on it. Because remember, this is quite porous right now. If we did not seal this and you put that antique gel on it, it'd be very, very ugly. You would not be happy. It would absorb that dark and it wouldn't lay on top like a glaze. It would actually just soak in and look muddy and not the look we're going for at all. So I'm just going around on every surface, making sure not to let this product pool. I don't want it to pool, and that's why I have my soft brush, so I can get down here in all these little crevices. I don't want this to pool at all, but I want to make sure every surface is covered, so when I put on that antique gel, it will slide around. And that's the fun part. That's my favorite part, is antique gel. So I'm just making sure, and you can kind of follow the lines of your molds and get down there in all those little, see, like this, there's lines here. Just follow the lines. It'll kind of do the work for you. Okay? You don't want a tremendous amount of product. You don't need a tremendous amount of product. You do, however, need to make sure that every area is covered pretty much. Get down in all those little divots, so when you're putting on that antique gel, it slides out as much as you want it to. You can leave as much antique gel behind as you'd like, but you want the option for that. You don't want this to grab more antique gel than you want it to. And this product prevents that from happening. Gives you a nice slippery surface to work on. Okay. So I'm going to turn the pot over and I'm going to paint the back. And this is just, it's very quick. It's just up down motions. Don't worry about lines, don't worry about brush lines. That's not an issue on a project like this. Just like this. See, now it's not even like the best paint job, because it doesn't matter, because we're going to antique over it. So it doesn't have to be like 2 perfect coats of paint. That's not this project. Maybe on a piece of furniture you'd want to do that, but on a project like this, that's not where we need to be. So then I'm going to set that down. I'm going to just go around the rim of this and seal it off, and then I'll just go to the inside and just kind of brush up like this all around. A little of this product goes a long way. The nice thing about it is you can see it, because it changes the color. Not the color. You know when you paint your nails and you put on a coat of clear nail polish, how that color just looks a little different, looks better. That's kind of what this does, what this product does. Okay, so that's done. This is all sealed inside and out. And then we'll move on to step 7, which is where the fun starts. This has to be dry. This has to be dry. So you can either set it outside where it's warm. You can blow it with a blow dryer. If you blow it with a blow dryer, which I often do, I blow it on medium, and then at the end I blow it with cool air. This product will get a little sticky. Yeah, a little sticky, a little gummy when it's warm. When it cools off, it is okay. It doesn't feel like that anymore. So whereas I'll dry it with the warm, I always come back with a nice shot of cool air to get that stickiness to dissipate. Okay, moving on. All right, here we go. This is where it all starts to make sense and look great. This is the payoff. We've got Valspar antiquing glaze that we're going to use. Now listen, if you like clear wax and dark wax and you know how to do that, you can do this part of the process that way, if that's what you're comfortable with. I don't do waxes much. I prefer this, but a clear wax to seal it, and then a dark wax will give you a similar look. I'm using a brush much like I used to put the sealer in here, because I want to get down in all those nice little nooks and crannies. I often just work out of the lid because that's more than enough product. It's scary when you first start. We're going to start right down here in this corner. Okay, I'm just going to rub this product everywhere I can get it. Every nook and cranny, every white spot you want to see covered. I work in sections about this big. Push it all up in there. I get a paper towel. I take my spray bottle and I get it damp. It's not sopping wet, it's just damp. I'm going to get 2. That way I won't have to change out so often. Okay, so I have my paper towels that are damp. I'm going to come and I'm going to pounce this to push the product in. If you went and just wiped it off right away, you could certainly do that. I don't think you get as good a result. So I go and I pounce. So I'm not wiping everything off. I'll go and I'll kind of come in around the edges and clean that up so it doesn't get darker than I want it to. Then I'll fold to a clean part of my towel, and I'll go and I'll wipe off the top. That's what we're going for. Okay, you can go in if it seems too dark up here, you can use the edge of your towel to do that. Every time you go to a clean spot, that's where you're wiping the product off of the parts that are high up, which is what you want. You want this product to be down in all the nooks and crannies, because that's what gives you that nice aged look. So as you can see, again, I'm not overthinking it. I'm looking at it from all angles to make sure that I get it down in the parts that I want it. I come in with my dirty side of my cloth and I pounce, pounce, pounce. Then I'll come in with another little part, clean or dirty, and I just kind of clean up around here, because I'll be working on this next. I don't want to leave a lot of product up there getting darker than I want it to get. Then I'll come to a clean part of my towel and I'll wipe off the top. And that's all there is to it. If it's too dark, like that seems a little dark to me, make yourself like a little Q-tip kind of situation and do that. A lot of this is what looks good to your eye. And then the part that has stain on it or glaze, you can come down and kind of dab that in and glaze that part. Now from there to there and from here to the bottom is finished. It's that fast. I got that nice crack right there that the glaze filled in. So I'm just going to continue. I'm going to take my glaze and work it down in with this nice semi-stiff brush. It's actually a stenciling brush, which I use for lots of things besides stenciling, because they have some body to them. They don't give so much. Sometimes I like a real soft brush. For this effect, I like a stiffer brush. Again, I'm going to come in with the part that's kind of dirty, and I'm going to pounce, driving most of that in there, not wiping everything away right away. Then I'm going to come and I'm going to kind of clean up the edges a little bit because I want everything to blend together. I'll come in on the side and I'll come in and I'll clean up the edges like this. And you can kind of bring this out like this because that's what you're going to do eventually anyway. So that's kind of already got its own little glaze going. If you got some stuff here that seems too much for you, go in and dab it out. That seems a little heavy. That seems a little heavy. A little bit heavy in there. A little bit heavy there. That looks good. Now let's go over the letters. My favorite part. Make sure you want to fill in all of those letters. You don't want any of those letters to show through white. So I'm just basically scrubbing all of that product down into those letters. Okay, then I'm going to come back again with the dirty part of my cloth. I'm going to pounce across here. Now I'm going to come and get a clean part of my rag. I'm going to give it a little spritz of water. You want it to be damp but not soaked. And I'm going to just give it a nice soft wipe. Kind of get down in my edges there. See your letters? Bam! That's the payoff. Come up in here. This looks a little heavy, so just kind of come up in there and just kind of give it a little wipe. Everything's with a real easy, light hand. It's not, you don't want to scrub too hard on this. It's almost kind of a brushing action. Now, if you don't think your letters are dark enough, you can certainly lay some more product in there and then wipe off gently so you don't get down into the groove of the letter. I think some of my letters did not catch real well, so I'm just going to very, very lightly give them another little bit and drive it down into those depressions. And then with a real light hand, I'm just going to wipe it back. Okay, love it. I think it looks really good. We're going to continue up around here. We're going to go all up in here, the whole thing. This is not a long process. None of this stuff takes particularly long. I think the part that takes the longest is probably making the molds maybe takes the longest, if I had to guess. So I'm going to do that. I'm coming in with my dark part of my, just going to kind of dab some of that off. I'm going to come with another part. I'm going to get up in here. I don't want that staying too dark. The face of this, I don't want it staying super dark. And then I'm going to take a clean part of my towel that's damp, and I'm going to wipe across the parts that stick up high, and that's what gives you that nice light and dark play. This, where it's flat up here, I'm just kind of pouncing and smoothing out. I'll come up around the top, make sure it's not too dark, and that you just kind of pounce. Okay, that looks really good. We just have to finish this part and then the back of the pot, which goes very, very quickly. So you just want to make sure that your sides are all pounced in. Every part that would show white, you want to make sure you cover that. Again, I'm going to come in with part of my dark towel and pounce that. Now see, that's a pounce. You can see the difference between the color here and the color here. That's just pounced. When you come back with a lighter hand with a clean part of your towel, you're wiping the glaze off the very, very top of the design, and that's what you want. And then here I just kind of come and smudge stuff out because we're going to the back of the pot anyway. Make sure I don't have it got a little heavy in there, so I just kind of go in. You can make a little Q-tip thing. My fingernails come in pretty handy for that kind of a process because I can get the towel around my fingernail and kind of drive it down in there. And a little bit there. You can add and take away to your liking. Okay? A lot of it is eyeballing it and seeing what appeals to you, what you think looks good. Sometimes I will even go in with a very thin brush if I don't have, excuse me, if I don't have antiquing gel where I want it, and I'll just kind of lay it in there like that, and then come back with a very light hand and take it out. Because sometimes you can't get it in there any other way. Like with my letters, if I felt like my letters weren't getting dark enough for me, I might go in and do that and kind of blend it out. Here, this letter looks a little light to me. I'm going to lay some of this dark right in that depression and then give it one of those. The rest of it looks pretty good to me. Yes, I'm quite happy. I hope you are too. I hope as you're following along, all of this is making sense to you and you're thinking, hey, this is kind of easier than I thought it would be, which it is. Sometimes it seems hard, and then when somebody shows you, you're like, well, it's not that hard. And it's not. It's really not that hard. It's just trying things, making lots of mistakes, which I've already done for you, so you don't have to make too many mistakes. Okay, so there, I've cleaned that up. That looks amazing. Now for the back of the pot, I will take my towel that's like this, and I will water down the lid that I've been working out of. Water it down, just a spray or so. This goes fairly quickly. I'll do something like this. I'll come back in and I'll kind of buff it out. Kind of a pouncy, buffy kind of thing. Okay? It's not straight up and down. You're not wiping it all off or you'll have big white marks. Okay? And you don't want that. It's just, it's almost like sponging, really. And that's, there it is with none. There it is antiqued. You want all that variation. You want all that play in color, which is what makes things look antiqued. That looks really good. So we'll do that again on this side. It's quite quick. Again, don't overthink it. Get your nice damp little towel and just kind of buff it out and move it around. Not too many wiping, like don't wipe like that because you will take it right off and then it doesn't look so good. Don't look for an absolutely even application because it's not going to be even, and you don't want it to be even. I've got some little striations here. I like that. That's what's going to give it character when we come back in and do the crackle lure on it and put the moss on it. Because if this had been sitting out for decades, which is, you know, kind of the look you're going for, it's not going to age evenly all the way around. You know, some parts are going to age different than other parts. So there. That is completely antiqued. I'm going to touch up a little bit around here because I got a little something going on here that's not thrilling me. There we go. That is antiqued. Okay? Not super hard. work on it until you get it the way you want it. If you want to take back some that's on the high points, you can get a little bit of a wet towel and wipe that back. We're going to hit all this with a light watered down paint to make that really pop. So it won't go down into the creases, it'll just lay on the top and it'll make things really pop and look good. One thing I do with this Fleur de Lis, because there's lots of detail right here that doesn't necessarily show, is I'll go in there and lay that in there like that, and then with just the gentlest of hands, I'll do that. Super gentle. And then just try to go, there's like 3 little dots there. Just try to run right across those little dots. There we go, so they show up. Okay. So that's it. We're going to let this dry. You can dry it with a blow dryer, or you can set it outside if it's warm, however you want to do it. Let it dry, and then we're going to move on to what's next. I don't know. I'll decide when I start filming, because we could do crackle next, we could do moss next, we could do the highlight next. It'll be surprised in the next step. Okay, we are going to move on to crackle. More of my favorite. Oh, who am I kidding? It's all my favorite. I love all of it. Okay, so I have some pieces of crackle lure. It comes in a 12 by 12 sheet. I have cut mine up, and you'll see why. I'm going to use Stays On Ganache. It's like a chocolate colored ink for my crackle, because this is shades of brown. So that's what I'm going to use. We'll start with the back. Let's talk a little bit about the Crackle Lure stamp. Probably my favorite IOD product. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to be even fully inked. It doesn't even have to be fully inked. And the best word to describe it is tickle. I heard somebody say tickle one time, and I thought, gosh, that's exactly what you do. So you lay it here, and you just kind of hit it in a couple of places. Done. And what you want is that subtle crackle that doesn't seem to begin or end in any particular place. That's what you're going for. It's literally that fast. So I'll give it, again, as you can see, I'm not inking the entire thing. I'm just giving it some ink. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to press, press, press. Done. I'm going to maybe, if you think it needs a little bit more there, do some more there. This is supposed to be a subtle look, but man, the impact. I do this on almost every project anymore because it just kind of pulls everything together. There we go. I'm not even going to re-ink this time. Give it a quick press. Looks amazing. When we get around the acorns and leaves, we're going to use that little stamp, and it's kind of a different type of a application. Okay, so there. The back of that pot is completely crackled already. It was that quick. Okay, now we're going to talk about this front part. I took my crackle stamp and I cut it into halves, and then I cut one piece into half again, and then I made some pieces with all irregular edges, and then I made some really small pieces because we work on small projects a lot in classes that we do. And these are good for getting into places like this where you want just one little piece of crackle. So that's why I did that. What I'm going to do, if you only had like one 4x4 piece of crackle, you could live with that. You wouldn't have to buy a whole 12 by 12 one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some into 4 by 4 pieces and sell them like that for like $10 a piece. And if you rounded one edge, leave it 4 by 4 and just rounded one edge, you'd really have everything you need to do this. I made several of these because I do classes, so everybody has to have one. So I'm going to take that part of the stamp. I'm going to bring it up close so you can see. I'm going to go right in here, and I'm just barely going to touch that. And it gives it just, do you see what's happening there? It's so subtle, but it's so effective. It looks so amazing. I'm going to bring you down a little bit, hoping that you can see as I'm working. Okay, so I'm going to go basically in all these little recessed parts, and I'm just going to hit with the little corner of my stamp. I'm just going to get in there and hit it like that. Like along here, I'll just do something like that. Maybe here I'll go in and just do, it's just the barest minimum. Do you see? It doesn't seem to start or stop in any particular place, which is what you want. It's super random. This just happens to fit perfectly around that leaf, which is very cool. I'll come up here and give it a little tickle. I'll go around here and tickle that a little bit, do that a little bit. Wherever you think you might like a little piece of it. And then I'm also going to come along the back side and just do a little bit. I'm not going to do a ton. I'm going to come and do like that. I'll do a little tiny bit there. I'll do some there. I'll do a little bit there. Down here really calls for it. This is a nice place to do it, down here on this flat spot, especially up in here. So I'll just come up in there and do like that, and a little bit on that side, kind of bring it out around. I'm going to come and do this side now. It's quick. Again, don't overthink it. If you overthink things, they look too contrived. You know, it needs to look like it just kind of happened over time. This is permanent ink, so you could paint over this. We're actually going to do a color wash over this to do our moss, and it won't go anywhere because it's permanent ink. I'm going to go in here and do this little bit right up here, kind of like our little focal point. I'm going to get right down in there and give it a little super, super easy little tap of crackle. I'm not pressing real hard. That is all the crackle I'm going to do on that. I'm going to bring it up close so you can see some of it, hopefully. It's just all kind of around the inside of the leaves and around the outside of the leaves. I did forget to mention in our last step, I did that same color wash treatment on the inside of this and around the lid of the thing, just with my dirty towel, with this towel. I just went in and rubbed it, and that was more than enough to make it look nice and aged. So that is the Crackle Lure. Perhaps my favorite Iron Orchid product. Not perhaps, it is. It's amazing. I love it. I use it on so much stuff. Do you see how now it's starting to really make this look like it's been around for a while? It's really something. Here I feel like I got a little heavy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade it out a little bit by adding a lighter bit kind of out here, super, super light, and just kind of let it kind of spider out from there, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's that part. Now we're going to move on to moss. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch. We're going to use craft paint, just regular old folk art craft paint. I have like one in every color. I love this stuff. What I've done is I've taken a bit of this color, which is called Forest Moss, and I've taken some of this color, which is called Thicket, and I'm going to give it a little spritz of water. And this is a little bright to me to actually look like moss, so I'm just kind of toning that down a bit so it looks a little bit darker and more moss-like, and you can adjust it as you go. Very high tech here. I'm using part of a paper plate, but I like these little rivets because they make like little bowls that are real cool. So I'll get this even wetter because you want this to be fairly wet. It's a wash, it's not a paint. You're going to wash this over, and you're actually going to blot it out with a damp paper towel. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start right here because it's easy to see. I'm going to bring you down a little closer. Extreme close-up. Okay, this is where the waterproof ink is important. If you don't have waterproof ink, do your moss first and then do your crackle. But with the waterproof ink, the ink will not, it won't move around. So I've taken this and I've wet it down to where it's quite wet, like a wash. And I'll go like that. Okay, that's what I do. I have a quite damp towel, and I'm just going to fade it out. It's very, very faded. It's very subtle, and that's what you want. At least that's what I want. I come up here, and I really kind of get in these places because I feel like that's where moss would collect. And then I just kind of very gently buff it out. Doesn't that look like moss? I think it does. I'm very excited about it. So that's just all I do. I just kind of push some in little places like that. I come back and I just kind of blot it out so it's nice and muted. I don't really want any on here, so of course I'm going to wipe that off. I just kind of want it down on the pot itself and up in these little cracks here. So as I work around the pot, it's quite quick. It's not, most of the stuff I do is pretty quick. And then I'm just going to blot it out, pull it back onto the pot a little bit because we're going to do the whole pot, top and bottom. Ugh, that looks so good. So then I'll come over to this side. I'm going to get my product wet again. It's got to be nice and wet, like watery, because it's a wash, right? It's not just a heavy paint. And then I'm going to back up a little bit. Hold on. And I'm just going to come in here and do that. I'm going to kind of pull this back into here, and then I'm going to do that. So it catches in the places where the antiquing gel is, right? Which is what we want. I'm going to come all around here. I'm going to really get it right in here because that's, I feel like, a place that would really catch a lot of moss. I'm just going to kind of blend it out. That's all there is to it. I'm going to give you as much of a close-up as I can give you. It's very, I have this awful shadow. I promise on the next video I'll get rid of it, but I'm already in thus far on this one, so it's a learning process for me. It's been quite a learning process for me, actually, but I've enjoyed it and I like to share with y'all. So I'm just mixing up some more of this color so it's not so bright, and I'm just going to come and meet down here and then I'm going to come back, blend it out. See, and it'll just catch in the places where the antiquing gel caught, which is very, very cool. I will come and do just ever so much, not a ton, just a little bit in this area here. I'm not going to do a ton in there, just a little bit, like maybe a touch there, maybe a touch right there. I'm not going to do a ton. You don't want it to look too uniform and too planned, because again, in nature, things you wouldn't have like an even coat of moss. I feel like this crack would have moss in it. Again, super, super subtle, but very cool. Now when you get back to, I'm going to raise this up a little bit more again so we can see the whole pot. When you get to this part, I only do the top and the bottom because I feel like that's where moss would grow, and I might do a dab or two in the middle, but I basically just kind of give it one of these and buff it out, and that's it. It's just a hint of green, which is what moss is, right? So then I'll come to the top of the pot and I'll kind of do the same thing. I might come down here. Whatever looks good to your eye. That's it. You see, it's just a hint, which makes it look real. At least that's what I tell myself in my little delusional artist world. So again, I'm just going to come down here, buff it out. You want to get real crazy and put like a big piece of moss right there. You certainly could do that and use an even lighter hand and not take it all out. But I like a light hand for this because the subtlety of it, I think, is pretty cool. Just a little bit in the middle. And so when you're putting this where the crackle is, so the moss with the crackle, it's a really, really cool effect, and it looks very much like we want it to, which is aged. So that's it. It's got a really nice glow to it, just a little bit. Oh, it's just wonderful. I'm going to come and play around in here just a bit, just a little bit. I'll come and wipe it back out. There we go. And you know what? That's it. That's it for the moss. I've put it all around here. I've dabbed some bits in there. I've gone all around the entire pot, top and bottom, with just little splotches in between. And you can see that it looks beautifully aged. And that's it. We are so close to being done. Our next step, we're going to highlight the top of all of this, just ever so slightly. It's not going to be a lot. Again, it's subtle, less is more. And the reason I do that is to brighten things that I have antiqued. I've taken a little bit of the paint that we painted the pot with, so your cream paint, okay? I'm going to thin it down just a bit, just a little spray, so it's not super, super thick. It's kind of a dry brush, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take some of my paint off of my brush. I don't want a lot of paint. And I'm going to go sideways, and I'm just going to hit the top of anything that sticks up. And while it's still wet, I'll go in with my finger and I'll blend it out. Now, if you can see the difference between this and this and this, these just have kind of like a little glow to them, which is what you want. You want them to stand out a little bit more. So there it is, and you want to blend it out with your finger. And that's why you make it a little bit on the wet side. So I'm just going to go over the entire piece like that, grab the high spots, and rub them back out. I'm not pushing this down. into where the antique gel is, because that's not what I want. I want that antique gel to be dark, and I want these to have just a bit of a glow to them. So I lay it on, and then I buff it out with my finger. Just flat, use the flat side of your brush. You would not have to do this part if you didn't want to, but I think it makes a big difference, especially from far away. When you look at this piece from far away, this this wreath of leaves and acorns will glow. It'll have like, that looks pretty, that looks better. And it is subtle, but I think worth it, which is why I do it. But you do want to blend it out. You don't want to get down and cover your antique stuff. It's just a kind of a quick little brush over with the flat side of your brush, because you don't want to get down too deep. So just across like that, come back in with your finger, across like that, come back in with your finger. And that's just in case you get any brush marks, which you can get brush marks, but when you go back in with your finger like this, it gets rid of them. So right across that acorn top and across that one, I'll go across that one, I'll come back in with my finger and rub it out. And that's it. Really want this to kind of glow, so I'm kind of hitting it a little bit more. That's more subtle. It's another layer of stuff going on, which makes things look more believable. To me, the more layers you have going on, the better off you are. And that took about 4 minutes to do that. Totally worth the time, because now it just kind of, this just kind of glows. Very pretty. Okay, guess what time it is? It's time to seal. We're finished. All we have to do is seal this, and it's done. Give me a second, I want to adjust the camera. Okay. I'm going to seal with what we sealed the molds with before we antiqued them, which is a wax finish varnish. It's a polyacrylic water-based product. So I get mine on Amazon. It comes in large and small bottles. You can use, there are other polyacrylic sealers that you can use. So if you have your own favorite, go ahead and use that. I like a big soft brush when I do this, okay? Everything's dry. Everything is dry, dry, dry. This super quick, okay? I start at the top and I just come all the way down. I don't overwork it. I don't overthink it. You guys are probably thinking, she sure doesn't think very much. I think maybe I say that too much. Don't overthink it, but don't overthink it. It's supposed to be fun, not stressful. So I just come in. I'm not worried about getting every single little area. Maybe I should worry about that, but I don't. I'm just going to brush all of this across here like this. I'm going to make sure that my letters do not fill up with product, because that will give, it'll kind of hide your dark color, which you don't want to do that. You want that to show. Very soft brush. Just brushing it on, making sure that I don't leave big pools of it behind. This does not have a tendency to yellow, but I'll bet if you put it on real thick it would yellow. I've not ever had that problem, but I'm very aware of the fact that you need to really spread this stuff out thin. So as I come around to my side, it's just a gentle, and that's why I like the soft brush, because it just kind of glides right over the pot very, very nicely. Very, very nicely. All of our hard work now is going to be protected to some degree. You're not going to want to sit this out and get it wet day after day after day, but that's kind of not really what this is. This seems to me more like an inside pot. Then I just lay my brush on its side, do my top like this, go around the outside, make sure I don't have any drips, and then I'm just going to take and again just very quickly go around the inside and seal that. If you've painted all the way down in your pot, go ahead and seal it all the way down to the bottom. That's certainly something that you can do. Completely up to you. Some people feel like this is maybe not finished, but I don't worry about things I can't see. So once there's flowers in this, nobody's going to see the inside of it. So why would I spend time or product on that? That's just my thought process. You may think differently. So I want to hold this in a way that I don't put fingerprints in. We did it. We're done. That's it. I'm going to take a pretty picture of it with flowers in it that I'll post, a still picture of it for you. That took us a little over 4 minutes. None of this stuff takes a ton of time. Some of the, the molds and stuff, when you're in the building stage of things like this, that does take time. This doesn't take a lot of time. This is very quick. This, you're sealing all your pretty work so it lasts for a long, 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 long time. And that, my friends, is your fall pot, all sealed, ready to be displayed after it dries. Okay, thanks for joining me. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had fun. I hope I didn't talk too much. I tend to ramble, but I'm going to edit those parts out so you won't even hear me ramble. All right, my friends, till next time.